want to talk about your biggest weakness being your biggest strength. We see this a lot in the Bible. We just see this in general. A thorn in the flesh. This is something I haven't talked about much over the internet. I've had a lot of conversations about it. So I guess I'll ask for a little bit of grace if I discombobulate the story. When I was in my early 20s, I didn't feel that good physically. I wanted to pass out. I felt like I was dying. It went through periods of time. In the morning, I would wake up, want to throw up. I would feel like I was on a different planet. It got to the point where when I stood up, my heart rate was 200. Some days I could barely walk. My vertigo was so bad. I remember blacking out, but not blacking out, and asking people to drive me to the hospital, and they think I'm just going crazy. I would go to the hospital, they'd give me anxiety meds, send me home, or they'd, are you eating enough? And I wasn't eating enough because food tasted like cardboard and I was so nauseous, but they assumed I was anorexic. And at some point, I could barely stand up. My heart rate would go to 200. I hadn't eaten. I was malnourished. Some, by the grace of God, some nurse told the doctor, oh wait, we're not there yet. Anyways, I would go to the hospital seeking help, and at some point, they knew me by name. By then I think they thought I was like the girl who cried wolf or something, and just, but one time I was just like, I'm not leaving. I'm not functioning at home. I can't take care of myself. My heart rate's 200. I can't even stand up and walk. And you guys, like, I feel crazy. And they're like, well, then we're going to send you to psych. And I'm like, well, then that's where I need to go because I'm not going home. So that was my first experience going into psych as a patient. I went back 3 times since then. But thank the Lord, this one nurse mentioned to the doctor that they should do an MRI on my brain. They do an MRI on my brain. I'm up in psych, and lo and behold, I have a brain tumor that needs to be removed. So at this point, you would think, oh my God, I was so terrified that I had a brain tumor that needed to be removed. At this point, I'm crying because I'm happy, which makes no sense. But when you have not been able to work for almost 3 years, you've been passing out, you feel like garbage, nobody believes you. Hearing that you're going to have brain surgery was like me hearing that your problems, there was a slight chance, like a slight bit of hope that this torment that I was in would end. So I was like, yes, give me the surgery, take this thing out now. My intuition was just like, take it out, take it out. So my tumor was in my front lobe, which has to do with decision making, executive functioning, higher level thinking, emotional processing, lots of fun stuff. At this time, I was also extremely depressed and anxious. I was in a bad situation. I would literally cry for hours. I couldn't eat. Like, I had all the symptoms of depression and anxiety on top of all the symptoms of having a brain tumor. And if you have pressure in your brain, anytime anyone finds out they have a brain tumor, the first thing they do is put you on antidepressants as mood stabilizers, because anything going on with the brain can cause any kind of mental illness. And we still don't know the exact correlation. We're still in what I like to call the dark ages of the human brain, because I still couldn't get a straight answer of what was causing what from 3 different neurologists. So yeah, I found out I needed to have a brain tumor removed. I was feeling horrible. No one believed me. Everyone thought I was just really annoying and sad and lazy, and this was a really tough time in my life. It feels horrible to not be believed when you're over here and you don't know you're actually possibly dying. You think you're crazy and you've convinced yourself that you're dying. So everyone around you thinks you're crazy, and then you're like, well, I am crazy, and you just accept it. You accept this is what I think about. And I shouldn't have used the word crazy. Actually, I don't like using that word. I work in psych units. I normally use the word crazy as a joke. But where was I? So anyways, I have my experiences in the psych unit, and they're interesting. Some of the stories funny after going there 3 times. Some of the stories not so funny. Some serious stuff. Staff being rude, irritable. Everyone's there because maybe they want to kill themselves. Maybe they just tried to kill themselves, and here you have staff tormenting people in a very vulnerable space. I get you're overworked. I get the nurses are overworked, but they put you on random meds. They're loading you up when you're in a psych unit. So you're already crazy on a different planet. You're feeling crazy, you go to a psych unit. Have fun. They're going to load you up real fast to see what works so they can turn and burn. It's like servers. They want to get you stabilized and go. They'll put you on the max amount because you're in a place where you're safe. So if there's a horrible reaction, they're there to just switch up your meds, which is also horrible for your brain chemistry at the time, but that is the medical system we live in. So I get out and eventually have my brain surgery, and thank the Lord, after my brain surgery, I felt so much better. I'm assuming that is because the pressure was released from my brain. I was having horrible migraines, so I'm not going to explain everything about having a brain tumor, but you have brain surgery, that pressure gets released, your cerebral spinal fluid, a lot of the stuff, a lot of the excess mass in your brain is gone. But for me, I felt so much better after brain surgery. Obviously, I was high and drunk and couldn't take care of myself for a few weeks, but the recovery was very quick. It was like 6 months to a year. I was like, I felt the best I've ever felt in years. I packed up my stuff. I went to go work in Yellowstone National Park. I went to go work in Glacier National Park. I went to go live in Montana since then. I kind of want to go back. But the point is, I was doing good. I mean, I still had bouts of depression and anxiety, which is normal. I still needed my meds. I still do, and sometimes you got to change them every few years. It is what it is. And I was in Montana, and there's not a lot of job opportunities in certain places in Montana. It's not very populated. I was living there, and I was like, I just need a filler job. I'm just gonna be here for a year. I'm looking at what's available on Indeed, and there's some really interesting jobs, and a lot of them were psych related, and I'm like, this is very interesting. I wouldn't think that in Montana. I know that's popular. You guys don't even have a lot of hospitals here. So I accepted a job position at a psych unit. And I remember thinking, well, if I don't like it, I'm going to throw away this job because this sounds scary, but I've worked in a psych unit, so I know that I can at least do better than the staff that I have because I can have compassion for people in that situation. So I took the job. We had 2 weeks of intensive training. Literally, we were like learning how to take people down on mats for emergency situations. And then I get the job, I go into it. And I remember being told by the principal, because it was like in and outpatient as related to a school setting. So we had both. I worked in the art and music room therapy area. And I remember like my first days, I told them my experience when I applied, and they're like, listen, you don't want to tell the kids that you were in a psych unit, though. They will eat you alive. Like, they will make fun of you. And I'm like, oh. And I'm over here like, I don't know what to expect. I've never worked with these kinds of kids. They're normal kids. Okay. So, I'm working there for a while, a couple months, and I just remember I'm going into this room with this girl absolutely crying. She wants to kill herself. She's a middle schooler. Most of them do here. And they're just crying, and they're like, no one relates to me. No one understands this. And I'm just like, I'm not going to sit here and not tell her. So I was just like, you know what? I've been in a situation like this, and I told her a little bit of my story, and I'm like, listen, like, I know you don't believe me. I know you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. But I had a real heart-to-heart with her and shared my experience. And she looked at me, and she had hope in her eyes. And like, to see someone go from like, I want to kill myself immediately, to like, oh my God, you were in this position and you got out of it, And look at you, you're this like big girl, and you're helping others, and you play guitar and you sing for us and you do all this stuff. And it was just like confirmation that like it's okay to have those conversations with specifically the girls. Like, I'm not talking about the boys with ODD. They probably would have eaten me alive. That's a completely different population that I worked with. But at least for the girls who were really suffering, yeah, I just felt that connection where it was like God was on my shoulder, and I was like, this is something. I wasn't even a Christian at the time. I was just like, this is something I am supposed to, this is where I'm supposed to do. All of the pain and the torment and what I felt like was the darkest hole I would never crawl out of. It felt like it had meaning, like even if I was depressed, because there were days I would go home and cry after you see a really sweet kid have a schizophrenic outbreak. You're just done at the end of the day. If too many kids had an outburst, you just go home crying. And yeah, just working with those kids, though, I could not explain how fulfilling that was for me. And like a part of it opened up old wounds, but a part of it also really healed what I went through. So to be able to use something, a bad experience, for good, yeah, it was a feeling that I can't explain. I don't know where else I was going to go with this. But I guess I was just going to talk in general about God turning your biggest weakness into your biggest strength. And so right now I'm back in Florida because I ended up moving. I was with my ex at the time, went to Miami, hated it. Not for me. Don't like the city, don't like the hustle and bustle, don't like the party. Ended up back with my parents to finish graduate school. I decided that I wanted to pursue my degree even farther because technically at the time I was psych unit staff / paraeducator working there, and I was like, you know what, I could have a lot more job duties, and I feel like I can do better things with these kids one-on-one. So that is what I'm very passionate about right now, going to school. And yeah, so I'm excited to get back to work. It's been annoying staring at a computer screen. I'm used to being out there in the thick of it with these extreme situations and being able to calm down. Kids in crisis is a strength that God gave me, especially with those younger females in turmoil who have been through a lot of abuse, who need someone who has similar experience and emotions to be there for them, because kids really have this intuition when talking to people. If you're actually listening, they will get frustrated so fast with those staff and those teachers that they feel like aren't listening, and it's nobody's fault. Everyone there is stressed, right? But I just found myself able to keep a very level, logical head and a lot more compassion just because of what I had been through. I just can't have a kid come to me crying and I can't say, I'm done today. I mean, there was times when I thought, I'm done today. Get over it. Get over it, Brenda. No, I'm just kidding. But I couldn't do it. I can't look a kid in the eyes and do it unless if it's, truly a behavioral outburst and it's not, some life-altering crisis. That's completely different. But yeah, and in today's church, I'm meeting so many beautiful women, and they're not open about their weaknesses. And I totally get it, because I've had people in church really try to convince me to get off of my medications, and I've fallen for it, and I've almost tried, and it is not good. I do believe some people are 100% supposed to be on medication, especially if you're missing part of your frontal lobe. Literally missing a part of my brain here. I can't really see it. But the point is, you should share your weaknesses. Maybe not to everyone, maybe not to the whole world like me, especially if you're in the thick of it. and you just are not in the capacity to handle any judgment, but just to find someone you trust and be like, hey, like, how can I use this? How can I grow in this? I was lucky. God just put that job in my lap, and here I was. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I was like, I'm just gonna travel. I don't know. I'm gonna go off out west. I've always wanted to dream and go be in the mountains and be in nature. And God really came through with a job that I am now very passionate about, that I'm not working right now, but I will be, and it's going to be great. And I really want to encourage all you women out there who think you have this horrible weakness. You do. You think you have, especially like a lot of women I know with mental illness, you think it's this huge burden, and maybe you're in that time where it truly is. But there will be a day when that weakness becomes a great strength. And maybe you can't see it right now. There were many times where I couldn't see it. I did not want to be alive for a lot of, before I found out I had a brain tumor. You know, I saw zero hope. I thought I would never be able to help anyone. I thought I was such a burden. I was convinced I was lazy and crazy. And I think mental illness is becoming so common. I hear all of these women saying the same things. Like, I can't do it. I'm a burden. I don't want to be alive. I don't want to share my problems. They're too much. I'm afraid if I open up, I'll just cry, and I can't stop. You know, each situation is different and should be handled individually. But like, at least being open and honest and finding that one person, because to keep all of that inside, it kind of used to be where, you know, only men really kept it inside. But lately I've been feeling like a lot of the Christian women I've been meeting, because right, you have the opposite. You have the oversharing, over therapetized culture, which I've kind of steered me away and into Christianity in a way. Then you have the Christian woman culture, which is, I'm going to put on this great, healthy, biblical woman persona. And how are you going to grow if you're pretending to be perfect all the time? No, we all know nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. No one's ever going to be perfect. We're all going to feel like failures at some point. It's human nature. It's a normal feeling. But find a way to make your weakness a strength. And if you're not there and you're like, right now it's just a weakness and I can't see it, that's okay. Maybe you can't see it, but I just hope that this gave you some hope. You know, I went through that we don't know when my brain tumor started growing. We do know it was growing because, like, we waited to get a second MRI. They were like, maybe it's just been in there forever. And then they found out it was growing, and it, like, was probably causing a lot of issues. But for me, at least, 2 to 5 years, with the last 2 years of it, not knowing it was there, it was a nightmare. It was horrible. And I saw no way out. I was so depressed. I wasn't even a Christian, but I begged God to kill me. I told God, listen, if my problems don't go away during brain surgery, do not wake me up. I wrote that down. I have that paper somewhere. I was like, God, do not wake me up if this isn't going to be over, because I don't want to be here. So to truly understand life is suffering sucks, because in order to get to that conclusion, you do have to suffer a lot. But you're not going to be I was never going to be able to connect with people or younger people or help them if I didn't have that life lesson, which sucks, because would I go through it again? Definitely not. Am I glad I went through it? Some days that I wish I was just naive to all of the tragedies of life, because yeah, it makes life a little dark. But then you have those days where you help a little girl, and by the end of the conversation, she's like, maybe I don't want to kill myself, and you go home and you're crying and you're like, God, thank you that I was able to make that kind of a difference, you know. Probably didn't last forever, but at least if I could ease the suffering of others in a few moments. Again, I wasn't even a Christian at the time, but I know I felt the Holy Spirit with me saying, like, this is what you're supposed to be doing. And I pray that if you're watching this and you have a weakness, that God reveals to you how that weakness is gonna become a strength. And I pray that it does become a strength. Yeah. I guess that's it. Maybe I'll post more about this experience, but I didn't get into a lot of the gritty, dark stuff. I kind of wanted to keep it light and positive and encouraging. And I love you guys. And I hope you all are healthy. And I don't know. Hope y'all are doing good.